can go actually into our second session on remote technologies and the trend towards remote technologies for knowledge sharing. And I'm extremely thrilled that we have Thomas Zürcher here on board, the CEO of the company MyLiveZone, which they do groundbreaking work in terms of remote training for industries. Thomas, are you there?
Yes. Thank you very much for this opportunity to present here idea about the remote training platform for industries. This is a nice theme. We can also see the possibilities we have during this crisis. So our idea is a very strong digitalization idea what we follows on, and we are in a specific digitalization field. So that means if I take the Google market ID, we don't negotiate about discounts. We give customers 100 times more. That means if you do a digitalization right, then you should get more at the end. And I think especially during these days, this comes through. So if you did your digitalization before, you can just earn the fruits right now in such crisis. If you start digitalization in this time, it's quite hard because we have seen that a lot of teams are staying in the home office, and even if we have nice technologies, nice tools as Teams and also Zoom, we see that the physical going together is very important for our way how we do the work. But if we digitalize, I think, and this is a powerful approach, and if this approach is successful, we would never go back. So I think nobody of you would choose the typewriter instead of a notebook. With both, you can type your letters, but the notebook is even more powerful than a typewriter. Today, we have a lot of typewriters what are around us. These typewriters are all the processes we never start transforming into a digital approach. And I like to share with you one of these typewriters today. It's the industrial training. An industrial training, as we know it, is the last 30 years, nothing has changed. The only thing what is changing is the equipment we have to train. So there is now a PLC, there is no electronic board, there is no microprocessor we just manage by ourselves, but there is new electronic equipment, but the way and the way of training is still the same the last 30 years. And one of the most problematic thing is that industrial training is very costly, it's very inefficient, and is very static. That means if you like to do an industrial training, especially in the electronic and software field, people's come together, people's need to come together. That's a nice aspect of the training, but you have to set up a lot of training centers all around the world. And if talk about this kind of training, it's very important that we really understand how a training is performed, that we can see then the advantages of remotely training, and also understand the graphics right after. So an industrial training is a quite necessary thing. I think this is not the question. You cannot sell your products if nobody has the know-how. You have a lot of support if nobody knows how to handle it. And especially in the components, there is more and more know-how inside. You need to train that you can really work with the new equipment. And if we do no training, we have no workforce. And that's what we can see today. It's very hard to sell gateways, IoT stuff, because the workforce is hardly, it's coming up, but there is a lack of training, what stops the advantage of IoT in industrial environments. And so that is a very important thing, that we really skill up the workforce. And there we need really to do changes in the way we do it. The standard training is focused on hardware and software, or software only. There is a trainee need to be trained, and there is a trainer. And these 4 components together, this is a hard thing today. This needs to be together. This needs to be performed in a room, in this assembly. If we do a managing by a platform, training platform, we need to separate these groups. If we are able to separate these groups and are able to manage this with a platform, then we really can have the digital benefits of an industrial training. And to do this needs a little bit of spirit, having new ideas in specific technologies. That means the thing we are doing is separating the training from the equipment, and that's exactly the same what we are doing right now. This is a kind of streaming service. So we have 2 realities. One reality is the training equipment. The other reality is the trainee's place where he is doing the training. And in between, we have a streaming service as we are using now, doing that conference. If we are able to do this, it's also no problem to perform a training from everywhere on the world on that equipment. That means the equipment is accessible wherever we can find trainees needs to be trained on our electronic stuff. If it doesn't matter where it stays, it also doesn't matter if we have 1 training equipment or more training equipments. You can set up a single spot or just a training center in the racks. The new idea is to access it with trainees all around. And the digitalization is not taking something successful away, it gives you new possibilities. So if a classroom training for you is very important, also after the digitalization step, you can perform a classroom training. For example, as we can see here is a classroom training from one of our customers performed in South Africa, in Johannesburg. And the equipment they are using is placed in Switzerland. So all of these people, they are just doing their training on real electronic stuff with all the software tools they need. The only thing is there is no logistic necessary to carry it to South Africa that they can perform their training. Right now in the crisis, this kind of training is not possible anymore. So you cannot reunion people and doing a social event with them. So this training could also take place even that time, because everybody of them could just stay at home in the home office, having access to the equipment, and instead of the physical meeting, we have just a remote meeting, same way as we do it now with Zoom. And with all these new possibilities, you see that a real digital approach gives you much more freedom to set up your processes in a new way in seconds. Setting up the process is something else. Setting up the process has not been done in a few days or months. If I share with you the time span we need to set up a remote training for industries in reality, we see that there is in the first year is the setup, is the first steps. There is nearly no action on with the training equipment. In the second year, we have a first impression, and normally the third year we have an iteration step. We have a little bit less training because we adjust the methods, we adjust the equipment, and then next years you can start performing. And this characteristic fits to most of our customers. So they just start, then they implement, then they adjust, and then they perform. The next slides I like to share with you are a few slides showing the performance of customers in the past. Here we have a customer from the last 5 years. You will see there are two different databases. The first database is an individual customer training. So our customer is doing for a long time successfully trainings with their customer in workshops, in organized workshops. And you can see that from 2016 to 2019, the number of these workshops and the number of trained people constantly grows. Beside that, he started with an online platform for the individual customer training. So that means customer can just, if they want, going online and doing an individual training with software and hardware together. And as you can see, the training is just starting very slowly. And in 2020, there are no online, no organized workshops really done by this customer. He stopped, but what you can see is the individual customer training increased dramatically. So that means in 2020 till October, this customer just stopped doing organized workshops, and the customer started doing individual trainings with the equipment. And this is in the factory automation. That means is PLCs and stuff like this, IoT. The next customer is a quite new customer. So we started doing starting the platform in 2018, end of 2018. So there is nearly no action on the platform. Then the last year, 2019, the customer started with organized workshops. And as you can see, he continued in this year with all his workshops because he changed the manner of the workshops. When the workshops before were organized in a training center or in a meeting room, Today, he does workshops where the trainees are located all over the world. So, for example, he has an Eastern training where Russian people, people from Middle East, and are connected, and the trainer still stays in Germany, and he performed the training, and everybody is located in his home office. And this is a very interesting graphic, because you can see there is no iteration step in between the first approach. There is just a successful start in 2019. And as this customer really has seen the power of his platform, he started through. And actually, from all our customers, we do not have a bad influence of this, this crisis, because the digital approach is very clear, and also the use of the equipment is really doesn't matter where you access it from. Is it from your office or from your home office? You have always the same quality of service. Last slide is also in professional education. You see that it's growing constantly, and even in 2020, after the first lockdown we had in April, we can see that the contact hours for industrial trainings and that education supplier hasn't really stopped. So even if the trainees, the students, did their classroom action from the home office, from home, you can see that the contact hours with the training equipment has not changed. So that means if you really start digitalization of a process, and if you do it in a real digital way, you are able to switch very fast your business models, and you will have a good base for your future. Doesn't matter what comes as next. With a digital approach, you are able to change. And that's what we could say. Customers who already did something before the crisis are very successful through the crisis. Actually, we have a lot of customers coming now, starting now, but this is a very hard process, because setting up such a system from home office is a very tricky thing. So we need more exercise in doing meetings and work from our home office that is successful at the end, to learn how to set up processes, how to digitalize processes in the future. If we already have the digitalization of that process, it's a quite nice thing that we can have the benefit from it. And I guess Google has right. If you really digitalize, you do not need the negotiation of percentages. You just get much more than you invest if you do it right. That's what I can say to the crisis from our side. We have a nice impression with our customers, and we are successful on our way. And I thank you very much sharing with you these ideas. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Very interesting to see this piece of technology for remote industrial training. What I find so particularly about this is not only that it's now a means to overcome the knowledge sharing requirements that we have during the crisis, right? We have to get the knowledge out there, we have to provide access to equipment. But even before, and we have learned today, to reach more sustainability and reduce CO2 footprint, I think this is just the right approach to go, right? Instead of shipping hardware or traveling to the locations where you can perform a training for a day or two, you just have the online link, as we do it now with the meeting here, but you have the technology available and can play with it just as you would do when you would be on the ground. So I think this technology is so promising for the future. How do you expect the path forward? So what are you expecting in the next months and years? You said you have many new customer requests, and now this is probably overwhelming you, because it's of course taking a little time to set up this process but once it's set up, I think these numbers of remote training hours, they will exponentially increase.
Yes, for us, is two things are very important. Growing is very important, but also growing, sustainable growing. That means we need also be able to fulfill our customers with the best possible service. And we are just developing the service in two ways. One is the customer developing more and more customers. That's much more easy right now as it was before. The other way is implementing new technologies into the platform. Because we have a platform, we are able to implement AI into the platform to give the customers, also the existing customers, much more benefits. So the best thing is to have data, and as we have seen in the slides before, also analyze data and data who show the KPIs. And with a digital process, it's easy to gather these data, and it's also easier to have it in the training situation. And I think in the future, this will be very important that we can support the training act, having data available that helps the trainees and the trainers to do a much more efficient training, also if it's not the contact training, if it is online.
Okay, then thank you, Thomas, for this exciting talk. And yeah, we continue now with our next panelist. Actually, we have three panelists. First of all, we are welcoming Frank Hassler from Holo1, one of the leading startups in augmented reality. Probably already over the stage of the startup. We will hear that from Frank. And Frank will not only be alone, he actually joins with one of their clients. So there's Thomas Gamati and Ryan Rabold. They are also joining this talk to tell us about how augmented reality is an enabler for remote applications. So we're very happy to have you here on the panel. Are you guys ready?